let's bring in our think tank tonight. We got the heavy hitters coming in tonight. We've got a law lady with us, Ashley McMahan.
Hey.
Now, I'm not, she's an that's what she calls herself, a law firm, or the law ladies, so that's why I use that term. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm being disrespectful. It's great. Also with us, Michael Sterling. I haven't seen him since I watched Bravo the other night, so great to have Michael with us. Criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor. And Michael Cardoza, are you kidding me? The last time I saw Michael, we were, I think, in Redwood City when the evil Scott Peterson was being sentenced to death row for the murder of Lacey and his unborn son, Connor. Michael, great to have you here tonight as well.
Thank you.
Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor out in San Francisco. All right, so they know what they're doing. I got to ask them some important questions here. Let's start with what Randy Kessler talked about, depositions. Michael, I'll start with you because I haven't spoken to you in a long, long time. Is there any chance that she gets deposed in the divorce case while this murder case is pending, or does she just throw in the towel on the divorce?
I got to tell you, if I were the criminal defense attorney, you throw in the towel and you throw it in now. You do not take the stand. You do not testify. You say nothing under oath. In fact, she's, as you know, her own worst enemy. I mean, right from the get-go, she started to talk without an attorney. I'm sure the attorneys have told her, knock it off, stop it, no more talking. But to go to that family law and to talk now would be insane. Throw the towel in, like you say, Vinny. Let him have the divorce and be done with it. God knows what he's going to say in that courtroom. The husband.
Yeah,
So,
Michael, Michael, if they're both in the courtroom, could you imagine that moment where you're in a divorce case, she's over here, he's over there, she's accused of murdering little Gannon? Uncomfortable, to say the least.
Well, you know, Vinny, you've got to know that the court will have a lot of bailiffs there to be sure nothing lights up in that courtroom. You don't want that husband going after the wife. I mean, it's a volatile situation. In his mind, Leticia killed his little boy. So he's going to be nothing but upset when he's in that courtroom, when he's in family court. They've got to watch him very carefully. If she's smart, she won't even show up. She'll waive her appearance. And I've got to think that if the prosecutor in this case is smart, he's in touch with that family law attorney, feeding him questions, saying, if she does testify, I'd certainly like to know about this. I'd like to know about that. And he will, or she will, the prosecutor, get the transcript from that family law court to see what happens there.
Michael Sterling, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I agree with Attorney Cardoza. If I'm the criminal defense lawyer, I'm not letting her participate at all in divorce proceedings. I'm not letting her get under oath. I mean, in addition to just the mistakes that she may make and things she may say that violate that compromise her Fifth Amendment right, you're also giving the prosecutor potential for new charges, obstruction of justice, perjury. So I'm not going to let her go under oath in any other proceeding. The most important proceeding is the one in front of her, which could land her in jail for the rest of her life. But at the same time, Vinny, we've got to think about the fact that a lot of these charges, a lot of these allegations, a lot of these affidavits, they're unchallenged at this point. This case, as soon as I heard about it and looked at the information related to it, reminded me of having the bones of a similar case that you covered in Florida years ago, the Casey Anthony case. And as we know, Casey Anthony, despite all of the public opinion against her, ended up with a not guilty verdict. So we'll have to see what sort of comes out in the wash after a lot of this evidence begins to get challenged by criminal defense attorneys.
Ashley, I think that's like the fifth time he's reminded me about that case.
Oh, yeah,
we're gonna have to
course.
create a rule here. Do not remind me of that miserable verdict down in Orange County, Florida. Ashley, here's my take on Leticia Stauch. I have a feeling that she may fight for some money out of this divorce. What do you think?
I mean, it wouldn't be in her own interest to do so. Her best bet is to shut up at this point. And I have to agree with, Cardoza on this. Like, look, if I'm the prosecutor, and as a former prosecutor myself, I'm talking to that family law attorney all day long and saying, these are the questions that I want answered. They already know they have a defendant that likes to talk. She was talking too much from the get-go, and as a criminal defense attorney now, that's the thing that I hate, where I'm like, oh God, you stick your own foot in your mouth, and there's nothing good that comes out of voluntarily talking to police or anything like that when you're looking at charges like this. So, if she's prone to do that, and she might testify in that divorce, and she might be a little contentious, and she might slip up, if I'm the prosecutor, I'm having that family law attorney in my corner whispering in his ear all day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be contentious because some of her searches that were uncovered that she did on the computer, allegedly, like, why am I the babysitter for this guy? How to find a man without a child. I mean, she was bitter, to say the least, at least allegedly. All right, when we come back, we're in the middle of this coronavirus shutdown. But this week in Ohio, they brought in prospective jurors for a criminal case. It was streaming online. I tuned in this morning. I'm going to show you what happened when we come back.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, we don't have defense counsel and defendant present. And I apologize for the delay in getting these proceedings started. We brought you in here earlier, and I apologize for making you wait, but we've been having discussions on the record with counsel. Defendant was present for that. And in light of some of the events that took place yesterday that were a little out of the ordinary, as well as some other developments that occurred last night, part of our discussion was the fact that both the state and the defendant don't believe that we're in a position at this point, with everything that's happened, to give either side a fair trial. So we are going to kick this trial for a couple of weeks, but we're going to start with a fresh pool of jurors. So when I excuse you...
That video is from today.
Will no longer...
Ashland County, Ohio. They had jurors in the courtroom, and they were in the midst of jury selection trying to do a trial with social distancing, with, look, people wearing masks inside the courtroom. Well, as it turns out, they postponed it, delayed it, and they're going to bring in some new jurors, but it was actually happening. Now, you heard the judge reference some of the events from yesterday. So I spoke with Adam Stone, who was the attorney for the defendant, and he described that event from yesterday. Take a listen.
The trial was scheduled to continue. My client was ordered, despite having medical documentation showing that he was showing symptoms of COVID-19. He had actually taken a test, but that test showed up initially negative. However, they were afraid of a false negative in light of his temperature, his fever, things of that nature. Judge wanted him in court today. We had him at court, but I was not comfortable, for a whole heck of a lot of reasons, to not go forward under those circumstances.
And what happened yesterday was he was having some sort of panic attack or something, having difficulty breathing. He had to take off his mask that he was wearing, and then they had to get him out of there and get him to get some medical treatment. Meanwhile, in the back, you had some jurors that were uncontrollably shaking. I don't know if they just didn't want to be there. So they pulled the plug on the thing. Let me bring back in the think tank, because I was surprised to hear that someone was trying to do a jury trial, but I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a way to do this. And then I saw what happened today, and then I thought, Ashley, maybe there isn't a way to do it. Can we do a criminal trial in front of a jury with social distancing and masks and everything? Might be good for the defendant, right, when they try to ID him in court.
I mean, that's all right. I love that you always look for the silver lining, Vinny. But I got to tell you, the first question that I always get asked when people find out I'm a criminal defense attorney, number one question, it never fails. How do I get out of jury duty? And what do I have to say to get myself out of jury duty? And we're going to have to try and give someone a fair trial where their life and their liberty is on the line. When you've got people worried in the courtroom and the jurors always thinking in the back of their mind, hey, there's this pandemic going on. People are coughing in the courtroom. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that they even thought that this had a fighting chance of going forward and that it would be a fair trial. I mean, this would be an issue on appeal immediately.
Michael Sterling, they're trying again. They set a date in May. You know, we're just a couple of weeks away from it. They're going to try again. You're going to have lawyers, defendants, maybe witnesses, jurors all wearing masks inside the courtroom. They're going to be 6 feet apart. So when you got a whisper over to your client, maybe you just pass them a note or send them a text. I don't know. How do you do it?
Vinny, it's ridiculous. Let me just make something clear to the people who watch Court TV. All judges are not created equal. There are judges who make terrible decisions. I've tried cases in Madison County, Mississippi, so I'm very familiar with judges who don't know how to play fair and be fair to each side. It's simply not possible. I've got to wear a mask while I try to conduct cross-examination or talk to jurors. Jurors have to wear masks while they're trying to listen to me, make points of law. They've got to deal with a certain level of discomfort. It's just, I mean, it's not possible. My client has to be 6 feet away from me while we talk to him. People are going to be unhappy that they're in a courtroom listening, more inclined to deliver a quick verdict just to get out because of their fears. The Supreme Court in Ohio ruled that you had to let anybody out of jury duty even if they expressed a fear that they could catch COVID-19. So now you're limiting the jury pool. You're not giving me a fair chance at jury selection. I just think that it's ridiculous. This judge ought to be ashamed of himself. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything about him, but the fact that he's trying to conduct a trial where somebody's liberty's at stake lets me know that he doesn't realize, you know, sometimes judges get so used to just doing these things all the time. They get so used to the criminal justice process that they don't take each individual case for the seriousness that it deserves. And that's what it feels like at this time.
Michael Cardoza, I think what this judge is trying to do is create some sort of model that other judges and courts might be able to follow. Someone's going to have to be the first. Some courtroom, some judge in this country is going to have to be the first to do a jury trial. How do we do it?
Well, I'll tell you what, we don't do it this way. I feel like I'm falling through the looking glass and I haven't stopped yet. We have a judge who brings all these jurors in. They're wearing masks. They're not 6 feet apart. There's all sorts of things wrong with this. The first thing, Vinny, that jumped into my head was, is this judge getting paid by the case? Does he need the money? Does he need to put this case to trial? And that's obviously not true. So why would he do something like this? Now, I agree with both the other attorneys. What happens with jurors when they come in? I agree with Ashley. The first thing people ask me to is, how do I get out of jury duty? They've given them carte blanche. All now you have to say is, I'm afraid to be here. COVID-19, get me out of here. What does that lead to? It leads to stealth jurors. Jurors that want to be on a jury and are willing to risk getting the virus to voice their opinion in a jury trial. So you're not going to get a fair trial. The other thing that jumps into my mind is, when you're wearing masks, do the witnesses have to wear masks? Because as you know, having tried cases before, when you were a prosecutor, you look at people, you test their credibility, you want to see their facial expressions. So when they hit the stand and they've got a mask on, not to mention, are you going to be able to understand them? Are you going to hear them? You don't get to see those facial expressions. So that will affect the jury in assessing that. Then how do jurors deliberate in this case? Usually jury rooms are what, 3 by 3? They're very small. I know there was one judge recently before COVID hit that let the juries into the courtroom to do it. But they're going to want out pretty fast. They're going to come to a pretty fast decision, because if you're worried about the virus, you're telling other jurors, let's get this done, which lessens the chance of holdout jurors, which help the defense, because you want to vet the evidence completely. And these people aren't going to do that in this situation. This is wrong.
Yeah, let me just add one thing, Vinny. As criminal defense attorneys, nobody's trying to delay trials. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to me in this very moment than having to continuously visit my clients who are in custody, who don't have a possibility of bond, and I can't give them a date certain when they're going to get their chance in court. But at the same time, we're human beings living in this country who recognize the importance and the critical nature that we're in, and we're not going to put anybody in danger, and we're certainly not going to rush to a trial where our client isn't going to have a fair shake. So criminal defense lawyers are not trying to unnecessarily delay trials, because it's frustrating to go visit your clients in jail and know that they're in custody and that justice is being delayed for them and they're not going to have their day in court, and you can't give them a date certain when this all might be over and they may have that date in court.
Speaking of days in court, Friday, so-called doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell will be in court. Her attorneys want that date. It's a bail reduction hearing. She's got a prelim just around the corner. We'll talk about that when we return.
For the first time in our country's history, you will hear the trials that shape our nation live on CourtTV.
America's front row seat to justice is taking you to America's highest court.
Take part in this historic televised event. The U.S. Supreme Court. Live oral arguments. Coverage begins starting Monday morning at 10, 9 Central on CourtTV.
Because she thought she needed to wait 3 days before filing a missing persons report. The two women were last seen on surveillance footage from a neighbor's camera, leaving the apartment and getting into Escalera's 2013 Dodge Dart seen here. The captain of the department says while it's normal for people their age to leave without telling anyone, the fact that they haven't returned home and left most of their belongings and didn't contact any family members makes this situation unusual. And police are asking residents in the area to be on alert for that Dodge Dart. And a high school shooter has agreed to plead guilty to numerous charges, including the killing of his two classmates. 18-year-old Gabriel Parker pleaded guilty to 16 charges, including the murders of Bailey Holt and Preston Cope. On January 2018, Parker walked into Marshall County High School in Kentucky and opened fire on his classmates, killing 2 and injuring 4. He was charged with 2 counts of murder, 8 counts of first-degree assault, and 6 counts of second-degree assault. He faces a life sentence with parole eligibility in 20 years. The aunt of Bailey Holt calls this plea a small victory for the families who won't have to relive the ordeal during a trial.
This small miracle is just a small step for us to heal. There will never be closure, but like I said, this is something that we've been praying about, and it just came to us, and we are so grateful for that.
Parker is scheduled to be sentenced on June 12th, rather. That's it for your CourtTV News Break. Vinnie, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Julia. Appreciate it. Doomsday cult mom, Lori Vallow Daybell, scheduled to be in court on Friday, a bail reduction hearing. She is claiming a continuing and continuous violation of her constitutional rights. Her attorneys have pushed for this hearing. They don't want it delayed anymore. So, of course, we're going to be covering it here on CourtTV. Now, Ted Rowlands had an opportunity to speak with the former Attorney General of the state of Idaho about this bail reduction hearing.
Well, there's always a chance when a bail hearing is revisited to have some new circumstance presented. She is an unlikely candidate to be able to successfully contend that she's not a flight risk, having previously fled the state to Hawaii, having previously failed to come back when ordered to do so, and now facing not only that charge of contempt, but other serious criminal charges, including 2 felony charges of desertion. She has a chance, but I wouldn't believe that it would be reduced to a very low level by the new magistrate.
And right now that bond is at $1 million. It was originally $3 million when she was first brought into custody in Hawaii. Then the judge in Idaho reduced it to $1 million. But now you've got a new judge looking at it, and you are going to have a defense team that is locked and loaded, because in one of the jailhouse visits that they had with their client, the folks at the jail recorded it, and they admitted that they recorded it. So a little problematic, right? And she's getting ready for her preliminary hearing, which is scheduled to come up. Let's bring back in our think tank tonight. Ashley McMahan, any chance that a new judge looks at this woman who has fled to Hawaii, then refused to come back until she got arrested and then finally waived extradition? I mean, she did that, but she fled the continental United States already. So if I was judge, I'd be a little nervous.
Yeah, this is one of the number one things that a judge looks at when they're, determining whether or not you're a good risk to stay out of jail while you await your trial. And I'm sorry, but she's committed the cardinal sin here, which is she fled. I mean, you may get a new judge that looks at it and reduces her bond amount by $1, but I don't know any attorney who can argue with a straight face, hey, look, she's not a flight risk. She has proven to us that she is. I don't think a new judge is going to change their mind on that based on the facts that we know about this case and everything that we've heard about this case so far and her own actions. So I think she's put herself in this position.
Michael Cardoza, some strong language from the defense in the papers that they filed saying a continuing constitutional violation that is taking place in that jail every day that she sits there. What arguments are we going to hear on Friday?
Well, the defense certainly will argue we're behind glass. We can't see her in person. Y'all have taped it already, which is a violation of her constitutional rights, the attorney-client privilege. But that's an easy fix. Now you get to the bail. They will scream and yell about all of that. But remember, these commissioners, these judges are elected. And you can tell me all day long that they don't think about that. In my mind, that's not true. You're going to have her coming back before a different magistrate. I can guarantee you the end result will not be a reduction in bail, will not be a release on her own recognizance. The judge will look at it and say, well, we've ordered her back before and she didn't come back before. Shows she's a flight risk. We have, 3, 4, 5 dead bodies that she might be responsible for, so they'll look at her as a threat to society. That's the biggest thing they look to. So there is no way she is going to get a reduced bail. Then I've heard in Idaho, the bail bondsmen are afraid to put that money up because of her history. So even if the judge does reduce, do they have a bail bondsman locked and loaded and ready to post that bail? I think not, from everything I've read.
Michael, do you think she comes into court with the lipstick and the makeup again?
I don't know. If I'm her criminal defense attorney, she doesn't come in with that on. I've got faith in her criminal defense lawyers. I think they're doing the best they can. I've been able to read several of their documents. But look, I mean, I think, one, you've got to look at her actual charges. So you have to look at the bail that the current bond that's set in relation to the actual charges, not just the allegations, the unproven allegations that are just floating around. She's been indicted on specific charges. Those have to be looked at. And I think the judge will have to look at that very specifically. Then I think maybe you can see the argument that, yes, she fled before, but you say, look, Judge, we're prepared to acquiesce to any conditions that this court will set in order to make sure that she appears for court, whether that's ankle monitoring, curfew, whatever.
I've got a condition.
Conditions. I'm sorry?
I've got a condition. I've got a great condition. Tell me where the kids are. Tell me where the kids
are.
Except
for that one, baby.
Oh, and she does.
Mrs. Valladega, I will lower your bail. Right. Tell me where the kids are.
Well, any condition
everyone's laughing.
I mean, that would violate any
all she has to do is answer that question. She gets out.
Oh, come on. You're not serious about that. They're not going to let her out. Where are the kids? They're in a grave somewhere. Oh, okay, we're going to let you out now? No way that's going to happen.
They definitely wouldn't let her out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, it's a murder case?
It's not a murder case, it's a desertion case.
Not
but even
yet,
in a desertion case, she's got a Fifth Amendment right.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay, so let me ask you this, and we'll go around, and let's do it relatively quickly. We don't have a lot of time here, and we'll go right around. Start with Ashley. Would you ask her where the kids are if you were representing her?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, yeah,
Michael
absolutely.
Cardoza, would you
yeah.
ask her?
I'm not sure I'd ask her right now. I'd want this case to develop a little more. Then if I thought it was a bargaining chip, there was a case out here in Alameda County in the Bay Area where a man went to trial, a Dr. Reiser. He was convicted of first-degree murder. Then he went with his attorney to the district attorney's office and said after he was convicted, all right, I'll tell you where the bodies are if you reduce me to a second. The family of that woman, his wife, the doctor, said, we want to know what happened. Yeah, fine, we'll do it. And they did it, Vinnie. They did it. So you keep that for a bargaining chip. Yeah, no kidding. Wow is right.
But I
they
want to
did
know,
it.
as the attorney, I may keep that as a bargaining chip, but as the attorney, I want to know right now, so I know that I have a, my client shouldn't mislead me under any circumstances. She's protected by the attorney-client privilege.
But remember, this is not
Yeah,
a murder case yet.
and-
It's not a murder case.
But do we need to prepare for it to
And
be
good
one?
luck,
Right,
Michael,
but
getting the truth out of her.
Yeah, but
And good luck getting the truth out of her
case, you
because
should know
she's
where
a
the
client
kids
just
are.
like that woman down in Orange County, Florida.
Lori Vallow?
Cut from
You
the
really
same
think you're
tooth.
Lori Vallow is the antithesis of Letitia. She is not going to talk.
No, I'm
She
talking
is
about
smarter.
Casey Anthony.
Oh, all right.
I'm talking about Casey Anthony. She
But that was
anytime she
not
opens up her
guilty, if I
mouth, she's
remember.
making up another story. Yeah,
Of
exactly.
course.
All right. Stay where you are, folks. Earlier tonight, I had an opportunity to speak with the newest member of the CourtTV family, Ashley Banfield. We call her the Doomsday Cult Mom, so-called Doomsday Cult Mom. Well, she's not the first, nor is Chad Daybell the first doomsday prophet out there. So we had a conversation about some prior doomsday prophets and how those cases turned out. Take a listen.
Today is
April
the
29th.
of April, right? And guess what? Apparently, on April 29th, we were all supposed to die. If you believe Pat Robertson.
This year?
Not this year, but you're very clever. No, in fact, it was April 29th of 2007. Pat Robertson made a prophecy that we were all going to die in some crazy way. The day of the Earth's destruction, he called it. It didn't happen. You and I are here. We're here to talk about it. Then it wasn't the first time that Pat Robertson
What was the weather like that day?
Prediction. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, Vinny. I don't know what the weather was like that day. But what's odd is that as Lori Vallow's friends and followers all think that the world's going to end this July, Pat Robertson had said it before, back in 1976. He had made another prediction that we were all going to come to some kind of an end. He said that would happen in 1982, but it didn't. And Pat Robertson's joined by another famous TV evangelist, a guy by the name of Jerry Falwell. I know you know him. I know
Jerry
you
Falwell.
recognize him.
This one I kind of remember because that was right around Y2K, right?
Exactly. He made the prediction that on January 1st of the year 2000, quote, his quote, not mine, God would pour out his judgment on the world. And as I recall, Y2K was like fizzle. Nothing really happened. Everything was fine. The computers didn't all blow up and we all went about our merry days. And clearly it was wrong, but they still have followers, these two televangelists. And it gets more sinister from
That's
there.
the thing,
There's
Ashley.
more.
Yeah, there's more, but that's the thing. The followers don't seem to be, I don't know, they don't like, oh, well, and walk away. They continue to follow. How about Marshall Applewhite?
Okay, so I'll tell you about him. And to that last point of yours, in a minute, I'm going to tell you why the followers all stay, even though the end of the world doesn't come. But Marshall Applewhite's was a lot more sinister. You can never get over those crazy eyes in the picture that Marshall Applewhite was featured in. He was the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult, and he predicted that a spacecraft was going to be following in the contrails of Hale-Bopp, the comet. Okay, stay with me. He said that suicide was the only way in order for you to exit this earth, because your soul would actually get on board that spacecraft in the contrails of the Hale-Bopp comet. The date that he predicted this would all happen was March 26, 1997. I did not see the Hale-Bopp comet or the contrails that date. Maybe they were there. I don't think the spaceship was. But that's what those people did. They followed that crazy leader. And I will call him a crazy leader for the end of days, because he took 38 people with him. And they all committed mass suicide in those black track suits and the sneakers, and they were found like this. So it was an awful tragedy. And that's what Marshall Applewhite did. So clearly those followers didn't need to continue following him.
And when we come back, the 13th juror speaks on a domestic violence case where the suspect caught in the middle of dismembering the victim. We'll be right back.
The news was unthinkable for Amber Farron's family.
He said that this was one of the most gruesome murders he's ever seen.
They believe something could have been done to prevent her death.
The system failed her 3 times I can count.
One of those times, according to Amber's family, was caught on camera. They believe this video shows Amber on the porch of her Ryan Street home in South Buffalo asking Buffalo police officers for help. In the video, a neighbor approaches BPD officers demanding they intervene. The neighbor is also heard saying Amber was pulled back into her home. Now, we reached out to the Buffalo police about this incident. According to their preliminary investigation, the officers addressed both Philip Farron and Amber Farron. At the time, she drove away safely and they addressed him.
And I want everyone to know that this can still happen. This can still happen.
Incredibly tragic. I posted this today on Facebook. And the other part of the story is that the suspect was apprehended. You know the saying red-handed? This was literally red-handed. He was allegedly dismembering the victim at the time police showed up on a welfare check to check in. And they allegedly caught him dismembering her right there. And you know, the question that I posed today is about, okay, what else can our system do here? Because the writing was on the wall in this case and many other cases. So we begin tonight with our 13th juror comment of the day coming from Kylie, who writes, we got to take this issue a lot more seriously. There should be more funding and education on mental health in this country. It's a problem not only with perpetrators, but it's also victims of trauma and abuse. It happens too often that someone has to die before their voice is heard. Michael Sterling, this is difficult. Domestic violence is really tricky. It's tough. It's even more intense now with stay-at-home orders. But I just feel like our system is missing something here. There's got to be more that we can do.
Vinnie, our system is absolutely missing something when it comes to domestic violence. And this is very personal to me because my wife is a survivor of domestic violence prior to meeting me. And I remember, meeting her and her having a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend and us reporting over 200 violations of the restraining order and nothing was done. Her receiving a death threat via email, us reporting that to the FBI and very little was done. And it's like you see this happen and it's so tragic to see it happen so often, but our system is missing something. It's almost like this is just not taken seriously enough until somebody is really hurt, killed, or even worse, like what was happening here, their bodies being dismembered. And it's just a tragedy. Our system is failing women and domestic abuse victims every single day. And I'm not saying I have the answer, Vinnie, but something certainly has to be done because we can't simply sit around and say, well, let's just wait until something tragic happens to try to do something or respond to a tragic situation. Our system just has to do a better job of responding to victims of domestic violence.
Susan writes tonight, keep the husband in jail. Don't let him out. When a victim leaves her abuser is when she's at a greater risk of being killed. And that is so true, Michael Cardoza. We've seen it many times when the ultimate breakup or you pack up, you get the strength to leave, that becomes the most dangerous time.
I know my heart certainly goes out to this family. This is certainly tragic, but what people often do is point at the police and say it's their fault. One of the things we can do is have more family, friends involvement. When they see women or men being abused, domestic violence, the DV as we call them, cases reported to the police and keep reporting it so that you have a track record and then you can point to the police. We need more family, more community involvement, and not point to the police as often. Now, here in California, one of the things some departments do is if they go to a domestic violence call, somebody gets arrested. The one that doesn't have the blood on them or the bruise on them, the other one goes to jail and they separate them. That's one way the police departments in California, at least some of them, are handling this problem. But again, I reiterate, more friend involvement, family involvement, separate them. Y'all get involved before y'all start pointing at the police.
Cosette writes tonight, I think first they need to believe the victims, no matter the gender. Then orders need to be better enforced. Victims need to be better informed when the perp is released. Then there needs to be more resources available to the victim and or children. This is just to start and the issues that I saw victims encounter. How do you better enforce an order? At the end of the day, an order is just a piece of paper, right, Ashley?
Yes, and that's the problem with these domestic violence cases. Just like, Michael Sterling was saying about those restraining orders. Most of those are designed, you can get a restraining order in place all day long, but if the person violates it, guess what? They're designed to kind of kick in to punish them extra once the harm has already been done. This kind of case makes me so angry, and not only as a woman, but just as a human being. This woman was failed repeatedly, over and over again, and I cannot fathom. My heart goes out to the family if I got a phone call
Absolutely.
that my sister, just if she was
Unbelievable.
being dismembered. Horrible.
Ashley McMahan, Michael Sterling, Michael Cardoza, great to have you on the program. Really enjoyed your analysis and your expertise that you shared with the viewers tonight. Stay safe out there.